Hi, how's everyone out there doing today? This is Amy Hamilton, author of The Project Manager Life is a Project and The Consummate Communicator Character Traits of True Professionals. Today, we are doing our marathon session 24 authors in 12 hours. And this is in honor of Veterans Day. And James Woosley from Free Agent Press is my agent. He's an Air Force veteran. And despite being Air Force and me being Army, we still get along super fabulously well. And one of the people that he's introduced me throughout this course of my journey has been Jennifer Harshman. And Jennifer is not an author. We've tricked you. We've tricked you into watching this. Instead, Jennifer is an editor. And as an editor, she has 100,000 books behind her today, which is super fun. And so we're going to talk to Jennifer about what it's been like to work with James, and also what is it like to be in the editing process of that piece of creativity for a book. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay, so first I have a little confession to make, kind of a bit of a secret. I am an author.
Oh, no.
And as far as what it's like to work with James Woosley, it has been a dream all along. When we first got started was when he wrote his first book. And we were friends online, and he posted something about having written it, and he was just about ready to publish. And I said, have you had it edited? And he said, no, I'm a really good writer. I'm well organized. I'm great with grammar, all of these things. And I don't think I need an editor. And I said, would you please let me edit it anyway? And he did. And he was glad that he did. He found a lot of things that changes that I made that he accepted. And the big thing with that was it was a very short turnaround, because he was in a hurry to get it published. And he didn't know what he didn't know. He didn't realize that you really can't rush that process, and that there a lot goes into it. Well, after he started Free Agent Press and he had done a few books for people, called me one day and he said, oh, Jennifer, I am so sorry. And I said, why? What's wrong? And he said, what I did to you back then with that book, he goes, I didn't know what I was doing to you. I'm so sorry. And I said, it worked out very well. It was a strategic decision that I made to do it, because I know he's an excellent person. And I knew that we would be able to work well together over the course of years. And I wanted to make that investment in our relationship. And I'm so very glad that I did.
I am so happy to hear that. And because of that, I'll share my experience later on working with Jennifer. But Jennifer, you have a secret. Can you share with us what your book is?
I actually have a few. Some of them I ghost wrote, so I can't reveal the titles because I'm under a non-disclosure agreement for each of those. But I have one that's Find a Real Editor, Avoiding the Posers and Scammers. It's designed to help authors know what to look for and know who is a legitimate editor and who might be, maybe it's not out of malice or any kind of intentional deception or anything. Maybe they just honestly don't know that they're not skilled. But there are a lot of people out there that have hung out their shingle as an editor who really shouldn't be doing that.
And that's such an important thing, is finding the right editor and somebody who's going to have the flexibility to listen to you at the same time, who is able to support what you need. So many things about that. And I'm going to post the link to your book in our chat area so that people can get access to it. So what is your advice on making sure that you don't end up with a quote unquote poser? I think that that's really kind of, the posers and the scammers are the ones who make you nervous, as opposed to the people who maybe this really isn't their skill set, but they're trying it out as a new profession or something.
The best thing is to know what to look for, and then to have the courage to speak up if you are interacting with someone that is, even if they're good, but they're just not a good fit for you, then you need to be able to have the courage to let them know that and to break off the arrangement.
And what about scammers? What does that mean? People who maybe might take your money and not even do the editing?
Yeah, there are some of those. And I had interacted with one that's like the epitome of the scammers. He was in a lot of author groups advertising that he would do their book for 1/2 cent per word with unlimited revisions. And that just threw up a giant red flag for me. And I said, how can you make a living doing this? You would have to just crank through the books and you can't possibly be doing a good job. And he was proud of the fact that all he did was run it through a software program and send it back. So a couple of clicks, a couple of minutes of his time, and he would charge them his flat rate. And then they would come back and say, hey, there's still all these errors. So he would run it through a second program and send it back and just go through a stack of software programs until he ran out. And if they kept coming back, maybe he would give them a refund. Maybe he would just block them on social media. And he was doing like 10 books a day this way. And it can take weeks to do a book properly. So people like that really give the good ones a bad name.
So no actual human review, just software.
Correct.
Wow, that is a shocking story, and definitely something to be aware of is being in a community forum. And one of the things we discussed earlier on some of the different segments from the 24 Authors in 12 Hours Veterans Day edition has been this theme of develop a good community. And that's one thing that James has really done with Free Agent Press is create a community where we can share these ideas. And I know when you're one of James's primary editors and you're personally the one that I have used and have experienced. So Jennifer, thank you for making my books the pieces of material that people can actually read.
It was an absolute pleasure and honor to work on your books. I'm so glad that they came to me.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really interesting, and I want to point out, is that Jennifer, as an editor, gives you the correct way to do things, but then also gives you license and understands that there might be nuances to either the genre that you're working in. She understands that maybe certain vernacular might be different. So she'll talk about, well, Mr. should technically be spelled out every time, but maybe you just want it to be MR. Let's figure out like the best way. If this is your character's dialect, what's the best way to make sure it's consistent with that character? And, for your characters, contractions can be perfectly acceptable, things like that. Do you want to talk about the art of editing besides the science and why you need an actual human to do it?
Sure. There, like you just mentioned a lot of it, that characters speak in a certain way, and we don't want to change what a character says unless it's out of character for that person. So if you have someone who's prim and proper and uses impeccable grammar all the way through, and then suddenly in this next bit of dialogue, they're sounding very, using a lot of slang, sounding very informal, then that would just be jarring to your reader and it doesn't fit with that character's past, presentation. So that would be something that I would flag. But ordinarily, anything that a character says, as long as it fits their character, we're going to leave it that way because that's the way the author wants it to be. That's the way that character speaks. And so that is pretty much sacrosanct. There is an art to it. So yes, we can go by everything that the Chicago Manual of Style says and everything that Dreyer's English says and all of those other manuals. And we can spell everything properly and we can use perfect syntax and grammar and kill it. And we don't want to kill it. We want that book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, we want it to be living. We want it to have some vibrancy that you, as the author, have put into it. So can someone edit something to death? Yes, absolutely. There is a fine line that you have to draw. And the way that I have always approached it is to put the final choice in the author's hands. Like you said, I will comment and I will say, okay, the dictionary says this, or Chicago Manual of Style says this, but it's your book and it's your call. And so that way you can know what do the rules say and you can weigh it against what you're trying to accomplish, because as much as your editor might know about your topic or about all of the rules, you as the author are the one who knows what you're trying to accomplish, and you know that better than anyone on the planet. So you get to make your own choices.
Yeah, and you bring up a lot of great points, and I'm going to reflect on my personal experience working with you. I remember one of the things I was very adamant about in my first book was the name of one of my two main characters, and it was a person with a three-person name. And it was very interesting because I had this different feedback from beta readers. I had feedback from you on Thomas Robert Morgan. Like, must you say this every single time? And I was almost adamant, like, yes, like probably 90% of the time in the book, it was like Thomas Robert Morgan.
Mhm.
And some of the feedback that I've gotten from that has been like very, very interesting. And a lot of it though has been the fact that because it is that kind of like three-person first name kind of thing, is people who have three-person first names love this character. And it was something I had never considered in actually writing it. But I have a friend who's like Scott Thomas, I can't even remember. Like, he's just got like all these first names, and you're like, your name, like which one goes first or second, and it's very confusing. And then one of the things I never planned on is for the audiobook, Commodore James, not James Commodore, is actually my narrator. And so that's somebody who's got almost like a last name as a first name and a first name as a last name. And so I think one of the fun things about the book is people who have these kind of names, it kind of resonates with this like little bit of confusion in the name piece. And so I think that the names and characters matters a lot. What are some common editing things that you see and would advise authors to be aware of?
Oh my goodness. Word usage errors are really common. People will mix up your as in possessive belonging to you and you are the contraction. They mix up those a lot. A lot of misplaced modifiers also. So trying to think of an example of one. Walking into the room, he blank, 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 where you don't really mean that. It makes a funny statement when you read it out. So reading your work aloud will help you to catch a lot of the common errors.
And that's interesting too, because whenever you do have somebody else read your narrative for your audiobook, they always catch one or two more because they read it aloud and have to go, oh, and here's the three things that I found where you have like, an extra pronoun here or something that doesn't go. We are about halfway through the segment. I can't believe how quickly this is going. I'm just like every segment, I say that too. So it's kind of something that happens, right? But I do want to take a moment to let everybody know that my books, The Project Manager, Life is a Project, and then The Consummate Communicator, Character Traits of True Professionals, are available for Kindle download free all day. And then for any of the print books I sell today, 10% of the proceeds are going to go to the Wounded Warrior Project. I am putting those links in line right now if you want to support or donate to the Wounded Warrior Project, really supporting that today on Veterans Day. And then I have a true confession also about Jennifer and I, is I do audio visual checks with everyone, and Jennifer and I were trying to get together, and she had a tornado. So first of all, Jennifer, I am so happy you and your family are safe and undamaged.
Thank you.
But second of all, we did not really get a chance to talk promos or anything else. I do have your website out, Harshman Services. And can you tell us a little bit about what services people can get to on your website, and then also anything else that you'd like to share with us, promotionals and service opportunities through you?
Sure. Thank you. So my website is harshmanservices.com, and it is now, it's grown over the last decade. It is now a full service agency for writing, editing, publishing services. And we'll take people at several different points along the journey. Basically, wherever they are when they meet me, we can take them by the hand and walk them through the rest of the process. So sometimes people will come at the very beginning and they'll say, I'm a coach and I know that I need to have a book to help me serve my clients better and reach more people, but I don't know what to write about and I don't know how to go about it. So I'll meet them at the very beginning and walk them all the way through the process until they're published on Amazon and they're giving away their books. Other people will have a lot of the material down already and they just need some help shaping it. Or maybe it's like James Woosley's book was, very well organized, already written, ready to go, or so they think, and they just want to get a little bit of help to polish that up. and then we'll meet them there too. So ghostwriting, blogging, blog management, all sorts of services that have to do with helpful writing.
Oh, that is such good points there, and it's really important for people to understand that the editing process is just that. It's a process. It's not a single point in time. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, your experience of editing and re-editing and going over different manuscripts?
Sure. So there are different types of editing, and not every piece of writing needs all of them. Developmental editing is what you would think of as very big picture, high level types of things that we would look at. Is this chapter where it needs to be? Does it even belong in this book, or should this be a separate piece? Does the whole book take the reader from point A to point B like the author wants it to? Or is there some kind of hurdle in between? Do we need to tweak things? So very big picture, high level stuff. And some people do just that type of editing. It takes a certain type of thinking to be able to do that. And not everyone can do that type and another type, which is copy editing. And also copy editors are mechanical editors, and they're looking at things like spelling, grammar, punctuation, sentence flow. They're not looking at big picture items. And just like developmental editors can't always copy edit, most copy editors can't do development. So we have a team of people, and each person does what they're the best at. So we play to their strengths. So you will want to go through step by step and be sure to take really good care of yourself. I know this sounds, it sounds a little silly to a lot of people. And they say, what do you mean self-care when I'm going through the edits on my book? It's just comments. It's just common sense things that I'm going to accept or reject. It's just a simple step-by-step process. And while all of that is true, it's also very mentally and emotionally draining to go through your book after it's been edited, whether it's the developmental stage or the copy editing stage. So I always encourage authors to make sure that they break it down, like 10,000 words per day, call it a day. Go for a walk, take a nap, get a massage, whatever it might be that makes you feel good. And then come back to it the next day and do that again. So make sure that you're taking really good care of yourself through that whole process.
That's such an important thing. And self-care has come up quite a bit today. I want to give a shout out to a couple of James's other authors, one of which is Dr. Phil Carlson. His book on wellness, just absolutely important. And a lot of what we've talked about is 2020 has just been a fabulously interesting year, right? And things have changed for so many people. So what have you seen for trends for authors and for your role as an editor? Has it increased, decreased, stayed the same? Like, how has life treated you in the editing field for 2020?
At first, when the lockdown started, people panicked. I had about $60,000 in business that evaporated, and within about a week or so. And so I was a little worried. I had myself a little cry. And then I said, you know what? There are people out there who still have the budget. There are people who know that this is a very good time to invest in themselves and in their books. And those are the people that I need to be serving. So all I need to do is keep having those conversations. And that's how I've built my business. It's all word of mouth and referral. I've never run an ad. I just do a good job. People love it and they tell people about it. So all that I needed to do was just have some more conversations. And within a couple of days, I had booked that amount of business back, and it's been steady ever since.
That's a really amazing story. And I kind of look at the world of publishing and editing right now. And a few authors today, one of which I'm going to point out, Janie Mary earlier was talking about her book on the little sloth, Ready Set Sloth. It's a children's book, and she calls it her she didn't call it a COVID project. It was I think a lockdown project. And I think that right now is a great time that if you're an author to really start thinking, hey, you're home, and it's definitely time to go ahead and write those books and write those ideas down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
So, as somebody who's been both an editor and author, what is your advice for people who want to become authors and they're like right at the beginning? They're sitting here during COVID and lockdown, and they're like, okay, I'm ready to do my book.
My advice would be to contact a developmental editor at the very beginning and at least have a conversation. Sometimes, like a lot of times, people will call me and I will help them mind map we'll just hop on a Zoom call, we'll mind map their book, we'll outline it, and then that's all they need, and they can go off and do their thing and have a great time doing it. But it's like working with an architect before you start to build your house. You want to have some plans. Even if you're not a big planner or outliner, you still want to have a good structure to work with. And then once you do, it's almost like the book will write itself.
I think that's a really, really good point. Is that, people have to have that plan, and I think, with my first book, The Project Manager Life, the project, the whole book is about how do you plan, how do you make sure that you have these concepts, and then how do you execute them. And one of the things that I think is very sad, and you've probably seen, is how many authors are out there with like half-written manuscripts.
Yeah, they say 84% of people will say they want to write a book, but very, very few actually do it. And that, to me, like, I try not to think about that because it makes me cry. I empathize with people so readily. And so I just think about how sad it is that they have this expertise. They have these experiences and these stories that they want to share with the world and make a difference. But for whatever reason, it's sitting on a hard drive or sitting in a desk drawer or, still stuck in their brain even. And it's not getting out there and serving the population that it could be serving. So it is a really sad situation. And what's even worse is there's a process that you can go through to get it out of your brain and into the world. And if you just know the process and walk through the steps, you can have your book done.
That's such a good point. And one of the things I wanted to touch on today, too, and a few of the other authors, like Erica White, has brought up the fact that before, back in the day, self-publishing had this really negative connotation. It actually used to be called vanity publishing by some people. It was extraordinarily expensive. It was very cost prohibitive. Things have changed so much, and I've talked to many professional authors who've said, I used to go through big publishing houses. I would rather own my book now, have my own creativity. I found it so much easier. Do you want to talk about that at all, like the difference now with self-publishing compared to where it used to be?
Sure. In the last 20 years or so, it has come so far as to be unrecognizable. So years ago, and society still has this construct that traditional publishing, the publishing houses do the work for you. They will do the marketing. They will, get your book into bookstores, and they will pay you a great advance to get started, and you can, spend your time researching it well and doing a great job. Well, years ago, that was the case, but it's not the case anymore. And most places are not giving advances at all. If they do, it's a really small one. And they're keeping quite a bit of the royalties. You might get 5 or 10% of your book's sale price, which is really not that much. And self-publishing has come so far in all of the different people and businesses that have popped up over the last couple of decades to be able to help an author process. And you can do it in a very professional manner and compete with the books that have gone through traditional publishing houses.
It's such an important point, and we are getting close to the end of the segment, which, gosh, everything goes by so fast. So just for everybody, Christine Odell is going to be our next speaker. Super excited to be having her on. But Jennifer, before we close, I want to ask you, is there anything I haven't touched on that you want to talk about? Because we do have a few minutes before we have to close the segment.
I just want to encourage people to take that leap, take the steps. If you need help, ask for it. If you're afraid, it's okay. It can be a really scary process. So get someone who's been through it. Reach out to me if you want to talk about it. If you need any help, anything like that, I am here for people. I love this. I do it every day, and I'm happy to help. So just take that first small step and get started, and you'll feel great when you get your book out there. There's no feeling like holding your book in your hands.
So I'm going to add one more thing to that, and I really mean this to be a positive, and it might not come out that way. So first of all, as Jennifer said, there's absolutely no feeling like the first time you hold your first book in your hands. But inevitably, when you do put yourself out there will be some negative feedback. And what I'm going to say is be true to you, because it's your book. You're the owner of the story. And once you get that book out there, take the feedback, listen to the pieces that are constructive, and then sometimes know, like, you can't be everything to everyone and still have a good book. What's your thoughts on that, Jennifer?
Absolutely. That is a great point. I've even heard some people say, you know that you've made it when you get your first 1-star review.
I really appreciate that. And the other thing I appreciate, so we had Jimmy Gia on the show last month, and he said, I appreciate the negative feedback the most. And he said, but don't give me a 1-star with nothing. Give me a 1-star and tell me why, because then I can improve it. And he said, the good feedback makes you feel good, but you can't do anything with it. Great, you like my book. Yay. It does make you feel good. But when you say, hey, I read your book and I thought there was this inconsistency, absolutely. And my worst review, someone said this did not help me with the project management professional exam. And I said, that's great, because in no way was it intended to. And so the book did exactly what it should. And so you have to keep those things in mind. You have to go on. Jennifer, we are at the end of our segment. First of all, thank you. I'm so glad that you and your family are safe from the tornadoes. Is there anything you want to add in closing?
Nope, just go out there, have fun, keep, like you say, be true to yourself, and just go do it.
Okay, my editor and secret author, Jennifer Harshman. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.